Everyone. So there's a few talking points around this segment that was on GB News with Dan Wootton and Laurence Fox. At the time, I didn't really pay much attention to it, but it's been in the newspapers. I have a little bit of a newspaper backlog, so I've been reading them, and I thought, okay, well, this is worth talking about. If you don't know the story, basically, Dan Wootton, the GB News presenter, had the actor Laurence Fox on his show. I don't know if Fox is now employed by GB News or what, because there's been talk of him being fired. I'm thinking fired from what? Fired from GB News? I don't know what it was. In that sense, what he's being fired from. But basically, they were talking about the journalist Ava Evans, and as I understand it, it was in the context that of her Question Time appearance. Now, I've been trying to find this Question Time clip. I haven't been able to. Maybe I've overlooked it. But the issue of basically what had happened was one of the other panelists, I'm not sure where it was from, one of the other panelists had spoken about the need for a minister for men. And Evans had countered this, and she basically went on to downplay all the issues that he was citing as to why there should be a minister for men, including male suicide. So she was downplaying the issues, and she kept reverting it back to things that affected women. And she was. This was the assertion that she was downplaying those issues, and the fellow panelist Jeff, someone I haven't seen it, so I really can't talk in great detail about the finer details, but he had said apparently that you can't seem to find any space to consider that there are issues that disproportionately affect men. Anyway, Fox and Wootton were discussing this, and Fox came out with something about basically what bloke in the right mind would want to sleep with her. It was a little bit cruder than that, but that's what he said. Now, I personally think that there isn't really room for that sort of talk on a news outlet. I think that I think Fox and Wootton let themselves down, not because she's offended, but because they missed an opportunity. For me, they could have used that for a serious talk, a serious critique of misandry, and the fact that there are feminists out there who really do downplay men's issues to the point where it can, I think, be described fairly as misandry, when you're constantly trying to delegitimize the concerns of issues that impact men. Now, this is not to say that only men commit suicide. Sadly, women do as well, but it is something that affects men more. The statistics show that. There's also things, for example, high-risk jobs more disproportionately affect men in the UK. And there's other areas as well. There's probably a higher rate of homelessness for men overall. But, I really think it gets toxic when it becomes like a competition of who's affected more, men or women. But it's feminists who are doing that. It's feminists that constantly drive the narrative of privileged men, and, women have all the hard luck. It's just a false narrative. And I do think it needs to be robustly challenged. So, Fox and Wootton could have used this as an opportunity to do that. But instead, they turned it into sort of a cheap pub banter type thing. And, in the end of the day, talking about whether a woman's worth sleeping with or not on a national show it's inappropriate. It's wrong. So some people might say, oh, what's the big deal? No, I disagree. I do think it was crude, and I don't think it's the right thing to do. But the other thing is it just gives ammo to feminists to spin the narrative of this overbearing misogyny that's out there. What they will fail to mention is this was in the context of critiquing a journalist who herself was coming out with misandrist positions. Anyway, Fox has kind of made a half apology in the sense that he apologised to her for the language used, and he said he let himself down. He said he wanted to clear his own conscience. But he has also said that he has lost friends to suicide, presumably male friends, and so he felt strongly about it. For me, the frustrating thing is they missed an opportunity. I think they could have really used that to critique her misandry and not be accused of misogyny in the process. Because, if they were to have a serious discussion, and say, well, why is it right that female journalists get to talk like this and to delegitimize men's issues? Um, it would be harder for feminists to say, oh, you're being misogynist if they're just having a serious talk. But if they turn it into, laddish banter, then unfortunately it just gives ammo to the feminists. But to me, this is like, it's a cycle, right? Because you get a prominent woman, or fairly prominent. I don't want to give her more attention than she craves. I think she is milking this. But, she says something that is misandrist. It's downplaying men's issues. That gets ignored. No controversy. You're not getting newspapers debating it. You're not getting newspapers criticizing it. She says it and she gets away with it. Then you get men in public life, in this case, Fox and Wooten, and they critique her, albeit in a very foolish way, but they critique her and they get absolutely pilloried, as misogynist men, and let's bring their heads out in a platter. And then, she milks it. She will now say she's being abused by Fox's supporters, by misogynistic language, and she feels frightened as a woman, and she is going to milk it. This has happened before. It happened with Kathy Newman and Jordan Peterson, and Charlotte Proudman, the so-called feminist lawyer. I am sick and tired of misandrist feminist bigots coming out with their nonsense and then being challenged for it and then playing the victim. And it's a cycle, and it happens every time. And the media plays along with it. If men have all the power, why is it the feminists are such a powerful lobby? Why is it the feminists, and maybe not in every walk, maybe not when it comes to the trans issue, but when it comes to this clear cut, the whole battle of the sexes thing, feminists really, really do enjoy the media privilege because they're the ones who get the media on their side. They're the ones who get to toe up the victimhood narrative. Whereas, because I've been looking at comments on this, and there is a lot of criticism of Ava Evans' attitude towards men's issues. So why is the media not, portraying that? I think there is a problem, and there are questions. And then you get a charlatan like Piers Morgan. This guy, I think he will jump on any bandwagon. He was just, giving her airtime to vent about how much of a victim she was, and it's just Morgan wasn't asking her a single question about her misandry. He just Piers Morgan. This is why I have very little respect for him. I don't think he has much conviction. I think Piers Morgan will jump on any bandwagon, and say what you want about Laurence Fox, but I do think he's someone of conviction. I don't care much for all of his positions. I think sometimes he does himself no favors. I think sometimes he doesn't think things through in terms of, this has happened before where he's just come out with something and he's backtracked and apologized. But I do think he has conviction. I think he is someone who has much more conviction than Piers Morgan. But it just bugs me. I am sick and tired of misandrists getting a free pass and the collective media not doing their job. Not giving, I mean, Fox was right when he said he's basically being a scapegoat here because it just taps into the feminist narrative of this misogyny we have in society. Were their comments misogynistic? Probably were, and they shouldn't have said that. I don't think that's right. But why is it they are pilloried and vilified for what they've said? And she gets away with it. She gets away with it. She gets away with downplaying male suicide effectively. I think that's wrong. I'm sick and tired of misandrists getting away with their worldview, with their toxic worldview, their anti-male worldview. So, and to those moderate feminists out there, maybe you are a feminist and maybe you're thinking, oh, but Nathan, feminists they're not man haters. Yeah, but the problem is if you're not calling out the misandry in your midst, that's why the movement has such a negative reputation. That's why third wave feminism has this reputation. But it's not a level playing field because the collective media absolutely gives them a platform and doesn't give anyone else a platform to counter that. Or at least when they do, they're immediately censored. Fox and Wooten are being censored. Wooten's lost his job, as far as I understand. Fox has as well. Whereas she gets to just milk up the victimhood. It's pathetic. And I've no doubt there will be a few trolls that will be giving her a hard time, but there will also be a lot of legitimate complaints about her attitude. This is exactly what happened with the Kathy Newman situation, in the sense that, she had that testy interview with Jordan Peterson, and then Peterson's fans, some of them probably were trolls, right? There are some people who will just come out with misogynistic bile, but also a lot of it will just be genuine criticism that's done in a mature and reasoned way. And I think, someone like Kathy Newman or Ava Evans or Charlotte Proudman, they interpret all criticism as misogyny. They will say anyone who disagrees with me is a misogynist. That's their attitude, and it stinks. It's just very manipulative and very cynical and very egoist, actually. But the thing that frustrates me most about this is not the battle of the sexes thing between Fox and Wooten on one side and Evans on the other. It's the failure of the collective media to give a balanced situation here. Okay, criticize Fox and Wooten for what they've said, but where is the debate about her comments? And that's why I'm annoyed at them as well, because they missed an opportunity. Um, Maybe if they'd taken it more seriously and actually um, made a critique of what she was saying in a more mature way, then people would be talking about that, and they'd be saying, actually, why is it feminists downplay these issues? I'd like feminists to face a bit more scrutiny of their attitudes, but the media constantly gives them a platform and gives them this free rein to just come out with what they want. An example of this is during, I don't know if it was the last general election or the 2017 election, the Women's Party was fielding candidates. Now, they're a very small party, a fringe party, yet I saw them being interviewed on news outlets without a single challenging question. They were just free to give their propaganda about how it's an overbearing patriarchy, and not a single journalist that I saw, maybe I missed it, questioned them. Now, when the Tories, Labour, and Liberal Democrat candidates were there, they were asked normal questions like, how do you justify this economic policy, or whatever it was. But the Women's Party candidate, oh, well, give your propaganda for 10 minutes and we won't challenge you, we'll just nod along. That's wrong. The job of journalists is to hold account to power, and someone who's aspiring for political office has to be asked tough questions. I mean, I don't take the Women's Equality Party very seriously. They're a fringe party. I think they're a divisive party. So I don't take them very seriously, but I think it's wrong that a fringe party gets overdue airtime, and at that time they did. Um, but yeah, it is about time that misandry was called out in our society. I'm sick and tired of feminists getting away with it. I mean, you cannot. There isn't a day goes by when you won't have at least one column in the national newspaper that is some generic rant about men. Now, even in the tabloids, you will not get a male journalist coming out with a generic rant about women and getting away with it, even in the tabloids. There's just not, there's just double standards there, glaringly obvious. Female journalists are ranting about men all the time and they get away with it. Why the double standards? We have free speech, but why the double standards? It's time misandry was called out.